Welcome back into the GSMC Sports Podcast for our final segment of the day, where we are going to be reacting to the Week 3 college football AP polls and talking about some of the biggest drama from this past weekend. Now, the headline game coming out of this was, of course, Notre Dame falling to Northern Illinois. How about Northern Illinois now being ranked? Huge win for them, but ultimately, I think that this is more of a statement on Notre Dame, and this is a team that coming into the year, I mentioned it on the show, I'm not very confident in, and it was a nice win against Texas A&M. I did actually have some good things to say coming out of that, because that was an offensive line that, of course, was, very inexperienced, and this is a lot of new pieces on the offense that I was hoping that Riley Leonard could be able to develop a deeper passing game. That's something that the Fighting Irish were just about entirely out of with their Week 1 game against Texas A&M, and maybe this was a situation against Northern Illinois that they could build on that. That was not the case. Riley Leonard in this game, 20 of 32, just 163 yards passing and 2 interceptions. So the Fighting Irish dropped from number 5 all the way down to number 18, and down 13 spots. This is a situation for them that I actually said after that A&M win, I'm almost a little bit relieved that Notre Dame won that game, so that now when they're sitting at the end of the year with, 1 or 2 losses, at least they have something on their resume to make them deserve it. Now at this point, losing this game to Northern Illinois, I was just never really a fan of them coming into this year. I do like Marcus Freeman a lot, and I'm rooting for him, but I can't trust Notre Dame, and that's such bad analysis is the reality that, you can't just look at the logo and not trust them, but they are one of those teams, and ultimately, they kind of tend to prove you right if that is what you're just going to stand by. Now, from a more analytical standpoint, I think it is just the lack of dynamicism on that offense, where they really are yet to develop any sort of a intermediate to deep passing game. Riley Leonard is yet to throw a touchdown up to this point. And yeah, it's cool that he can run, and if you can build off of that and have that be your backbone, they have a couple good running backs as well beside him that they should be able to, if they can win at the line of scrimmage, they should be a good ground and pound team. But again, that can only take you so far. It did not take them very far at all, as they only scored 13 points in this game against Northern Illinois, and now they are down at 18. At this point, again, it's not that I'm rooting against them necessarily. It's just that I don't believe in them, and I think it would be really frustrating for me as a fan, and I'm sure for a fan of any team that is sort of hovering around the bubble there, that they're going to get knocked out because Notre Dame didn't really play all that difficult of a schedule, and they end up losing just 1 or 2 games. Now, at least one. The other 2 big games for them are against Florida State, who has clearly proven that they aren't all that good either, and on the road against USC, which I think they lose that game now at this point, but, we'll have to see, because that is, months away at this point. So, Notre Dame, the biggest faller, of course, and the biggest story out of this. Michigan, also a significant faller. Weird situation there. Texas is really good, so give Texas their credit as well. Going into the Big House and pulling out that game, Quinn Ewers was excellent, and it was ultimately a throttling for Texas in this game. I think it's more about Michigan. We talked last week about the distrust in the offense right now. Sounds like as well that I wasn't even fully aware of this until just about a couple hours ago. Our boss here, Tate, pointed out that Sharon Moore might not even be fully guaranteed on a contract as the Michigan head coach. That I got to look more into that. But, it might seem like Michigan's just sort of treading water for the year, trying to figure out how this investigation stuff breaks for them, and then ultimately they go in a different direction after this year. But they definitely don't have any answers on offense right now, and they deserve to drop as far as they did, if not I mean, it's a good team in Texas that they lost to, so I suppose 7 spots is enough, but they do drop out. Tennessee, the biggest riser in this game, considering they sort of beat the doors off of NC State, ranked number 24. It was one of the 2 ranked matchups we had. It was that and the Texas-Michigan game. Neither one of them ended up being all that good, but it is definitely, good to see Tennessee sort of rolling like this. I think that they are one of the, top SEC teams that really didn't get much excitement at all coming into the year. I feel like a good portion of that is maybe because of the unknown that is Nico Iamaleava, and he wasn't excellent in this game, did have 2 interceptions, but what you do like to see about that, and maybe it's a little bit of a cop-out as well, especially considering the fact that they were up by so much, that it's not like he threw an interception in a high-leverage moment that, the pressure wasn't necessarily there in the same light, but he didn't let it define his game, and I just think that the physical tools, you see some of the throws that he makes, and I just think that he has excellent touch on the ball. The accuracy is pretty good as well. Somebody that I think will develop into a very good quarterback someday. Tennessee, it's interesting because now they are ranked number 7. They're up 7 spots. They were the biggest riser from last week to this week, other than, I suppose, again, Northern Illinois, who was unranked. And even the fact that they're sitting there at 25 feels like a big-time win for them. But, ultimately, we'll see how long that actually lasts. I would, argue probably not very long. But as for Tennessee, I mean, they seem like they are now in a position where they could definitely make a run here towards the playoffs. And that's something that was definitely sort of an outside shot coming into the year. But, now they have a couple convincing wins under their belt. NC State, a good win. NC State isn't exactly an elite team, but they were ranked at the time. We'll see where they finish at the end of the year, but they were expected to sort of be one of the top teams in the ACC after a Florida State and a Clemson that, we'll see how long, and a Miami, of course, that they were sort of the 4th team out of that pecking order in the ACC, that the ACC just not looking very strong at the top, but again, a whole lot of football left to play this year. But Tennessee has some big games on the schedule to sort of further establish quite how good they are. First one is good, that's really going to show us something, I would argue, is in a couple weeks from now, going into Oklahoma to take on Jackson Arnold and the Sooners. That should be a real statement for them. At this point, Oklahoma, a couple weeks out. I hate looking at betting lines this far in advance, but, they're going to be underdogs headed into this matchup. Oklahoma is a good team. So, we'll see with Tennessee, but, as you look at some of those other SEC teams that have stumbled a little bit, LSU coming out of the gates hasn't been quite as dominant as a lot of people were anticipating, and I just think that ultimately, especially if Notre Dame's dropping out of this as well, we could definitely see Tennessee, continuing to rise. So good to see them where they're at. And then the other sort of big notes, I suppose, I would throw out there. Oregon continuing to not really live up to expectations just yet. I came out after their week 1 win against Idaho and said, oh, well, this is something that they sort of got punched in the mouth a little bit. They should anticipate that they can, that they, once they sort of fully lock in, there's a much higher ceiling, and that is absolutely the case. But it also doesn't look like, this... I mean, the offense put up 37 points against Boise State. Boise's not exactly a great defense either. It's a team that let up 30-something, I believe it was, to Georgia Southern in week 1. It was probably more than that, actually. That game was extremely high scoring. It was, 45. So putting up points against Boise isn't all that impressive. I think that Dylan Gabriel's a good enough quarterback that I'm not totally concerned there. The defense in this game, though, not great. And it's also a Boise State team that, as much as they allow points every week, they also score points. So ultimately, 34 allowed. Ashton Jeanty looking like he could maybe, it's the Heisman is a quarterback's award, but we'll see how this works out. But 9 touchdowns for him through 2 games, that is incredible stuff from him. And you got to give credit there, but also Oregon, that this is a Boise State team that's going to come out and try and beat you through the run game, not being able to make that adjustment. They come away with the win. They're still undefeated. They're still ranked in the top 10, but once again, in a win, dropping a couple spots, and they are now at number 9. But let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section, what your biggest takeaways are. But that is all the time we have for today. Thank you very much for tuning into the GSMC Sports Podcast. Thank you to the GSMC Sports Network for allowing us to host this show. Remember to like, follow, subscribe wherever you keep up with us. Be sure to check us out on social media as well for more exclusive short content. And we will be back tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern. We will see you then. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great.